So officially welcome all of you, and as always, absolutely delighted that there are people there who want to join in our Magic Mondays call and to learn this morning, importantly, all about flawless bases. I'm just going to give you the programme for the week because hopefully some of you will really want to join in on our Bright Spot session. So tomorrow we've got a chat with a lovely woman, a Super Troopers woman. She might be on this call. Her name's Angelique Dutoit, and she's got a lot to say about women becoming or not becoming invisible, and confidence and colour, and lots of interesting things that she's involved with. She's a delightful person. I love chatting to her when we met. And on Wednesday, Leonie and I are going to be talking fish. And on Thursday, Lindsay is going to be putting me through my paces with lower body strength. So it's lower body. We did upper body last week. We had some great feedback from that. Everybody showing a lot of love for Lindsay and saying how good she is as a teacher, and she is exceptional. And on Friday, we've got a film club about a slightly softer subject this week. It's called The Midwife. It's a French film. It's a very sweet film, and two lovely, strong female characters in it, and a beautiful development of an unlikely relationship between Catherine Deneuve, who is fantastic, and a younger woman. Anyway, let's get on with what we're going to talk about today, which is flawless base. Now, why we wanted to do this, Sally and I, is we had a conversation about this when we were thinking about how we do it. Obviously, the canvas of your face is your skin, but there is an awful lot that you can do to prepare that canvas and then perfect that canvas before you start to put on coloured cosmetics. So what we want to do today, we really want to show you absolutely all the tips, techniques, tricks, whatever you'd like to call them, that Sally and I know to get that canvas as beautiful as you can possibly get it, in order for you then to build shape and colour and everything else. So what we're going to do, I'm going to hand over to Sally very shortly. She doesn't have any base on at the moment, and she's going to show you how to do that first process. So the prepping, and also then the choice of things like foundations and so on. She's then going to pass back to me, and I want to show you how to then perfect that base using concealer. So I need that a lot on my face. I need it more than Sally, because Sally is younger than I am, and I have more issues with my face in terms of helping it even when I've got a good foundation on. So she'll pass back to me. I'll show you how I apply that and all the tips and techniques and tricks. And I talk a little bit about color balance neutralizers as well. And then I might pass back to Sally again, and she'll talk about sort of final perfection, things like powders and powders and bronzers and things like that. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. So Sally, let me pass over to you, and you're going to just tell us about prepping the canvas, and also choice of base, and also application of base.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Every week I'm looking worse and worse. I couldn't not put my eyes on this morning. I'm sure at some point I'll come on with absolutely no makeup, but I'm feeling very, very pale. And for me, foundation, I love wearing foundation. I have done. I think a lot of ladies are a little bit scared of foundation. I know we've sort of found that through the shops, and I think it has changed massively over the years. Certainly since I've been a makeup artist, foundations and tinted moisturizers and primers have come an awful long way. So as Tricia said, preparing your face is actually the first stage, and I would always make sure when I'm going to use my foundation that I have got a clean face, cleansed face, and a moisturized face. Exfoliation, we'll talk about skincare another week, but I do also believe that regular exfoliation of your skin actually makes a massive difference to how your makeup goes on. And I know that Look Fabulous Forever are bringing out hopefully an exfoliator, but in the meantime, what I tend to do, and I think it's a really good tip, is when I cleanse my face, I use our lovely cleanser, and I put the cleanser on with my fingers and really, really massage it in. It's really, really creamy. I then take a soft flannel and I rinse it under lukewarm water, not really hot water, not really cold water, and take off my makeup using a flannel. And that actually does give you an instant, very slight exfoliation every day. So it's a really good way to keep your skin in a good way, ready for putting makeup on. So keeping it really well exfoliated, because you get a lot of debris of build-up of dry skin, particularly around the nose area. And that you'll find often makeup sort of clogs into there, and that it's not a good look. The other thing is hydration, moisturizer, keeping your skin really moist. I personally have seen a massive difference in my skin. I mean, I didn't used to look, I still look a bit blotchy, and you'll see I've got some pigmentation here, but I look a lot less blotchy having started to use the Hydration Hold Serum, which I absolutely love. I use this serum underneath moisturizer. Again, we'll talk about that in more detail another day, but that has made a massive difference to my makeup application, actually. So I really recommend that. Moisturizer, putting your moisturizer on, but don't go straight into makeup. I think a lot of ladies put their moisturizer on and then straight away put their primer or their foundation on. It definitely needs time to sink in. So do something else, like brush your teeth, do your hair, get dressed, do something for a few minutes, wait a few minutes to let your moisturizer sink in before you go into the first stage of going for it. Now, when I first found Look Fabulous Forever, the very first product that I used was this one, the primer. This is my hero product, and in fact you can see I love it, certainly because you can see how much you're using. When I start to get towards empty, I start to panic. I've got to get another one, I have to have my primer. I call this, I know Tricia knows I call this magic knickers for the face. I probably shouldn't, but I absolutely love this primer. So this is a makeup problem. It's not a serum. I think ladies get confused a little bit between serums and makeup primers. The serum you use underneath your moisturizer as part of your skincare routine. But this is an amazing product. If you imagine a decorator is going to go and decorate your walls, he or she would hopefully, to do a good job, would prime the walls first and make sure that they're all smooth and even before applying the colour paint. So if you think of this as your primer, this is what I use. It's got aloe vera, it's got silica. And what it does two things. First of all, it fills in any open pores. As we get older, if you've got open pores, they tend to get a little bit worse. So it fills in open pores, and it also actually fills in and minimizes fine lines. So when I put this on, I'm just, as I said, magic knickers for the face. I feel instantly everything blurs. It is exactly as it says on the bottle. It's like silk. You put it on and your skin feels like silk. So that's the first thing it does. It just creates that really smooth base, which means your foundation or your beauty balm goes on better. But secondly, it keeps your makeup on all day. If I use this in the morning, I do not have to touch up my foundation from morning till late at night. And before using this, I would occasionally find that my skin would go maybe a little bit patchy, where there were dry patches during the day. So this is really, really important. Going one step back to skincare, I just want to mention eye cream. If you find that your foundation or your concealer cakes and goes into fine lines, as we get older, we get more fine lines around the eyes. I think that's one of the big questions I get with concealer. I'm going to tell you a little tip later, but making sure that the skin around the eyes is hydrated is really important. Drinking lots of water. I think in winter it's harder to, I know I don't drink enough water in winter. In summer I'm very good at drinking water, but keeping hydrated. But the eye cream that we've got is fantastic. To use a little bit of eye cream every night with your ring finger means that your skin is hydrated and ready, and that makes a big difference when you're using concealer under the eyes. Okay, right. How much of this to use? I use it, I put it on my hands, so I'll just, my hands in view. I use probably about that much, you can see that. And I'm just going to put the lovely roller in. Sally doing her hair at the same time, just to keep my hair out of the way. I've got a little bit of redness here. I think that's a stress-related redness. And I've also got some, as I said, quite a bit of I used to sunbathe a lot when I was young. Wish I hadn't. This is all sun-related pigmentation that comes out worse in the summer. But so I'm just popping this on with my fingers all over. And when you use this, I know lots of you do use it, you actually can instantly actually see a difference. You look in the mirror and everything just looks lovely and blurred, and it just is amazing. I put it everywhere, and you can actually feel the difference as well. It just smooths everything out.
Sally, I don't want to interrupt you. We've got a customer who buys 4 at a time face primer, and she buys them very, very regularly, and we reckon she uses it all over her body.
I don't blame her. Maybe I should try that.
I'm not sure that that's a good idea, I have to say, but it's like, why does this person, well, we don't argue with her, she obviously loves it. I think she might give them away to as presents or something, but anyway, so we sell more face primer than any other product.
Well, when I do makeup lessons, and I do younger ladies, I do brides, I use it. I use it on nearly everybody because I just think it's the best primer that I've used. So love it. So primer. Tricia, I know, is going to talk about the color balance neutralizers, but I just want to say that if you're going to use those, it's best to use them at this point. Because you don't want to use green after your foundation, otherwise you'll look like the Incredible Hulk. So I know Tricia's going to use those and explain about those, but if you've got any redness, then the green is fantastic for counterbalancing redness. And if you've got really dark circles or a lot of sort of brown and blue, and then the peach one is really good. So I would do that at this stage. So foundations, how do you choose? There's two things really. First of all, there's how much coverage you want with your foundation, whether you need a thicker coverage, whether you want it very, very light in texture. And secondly, there's the color. When I first came across Look Fabulous Forever, there was only the continuous cover foundation, and I loved it. I used to use, in the summer, I always used the number 2, which suits a lot of people. Sorry, in the winter, I use the number 2. In the summer, I found when I got a little bit more color in my face, I, at the time, needed to mix the number 2 and the number 3. And I was delighted when Look Fabulous Forever brought out a 2.5, which for me in the summer is the perfect shade. And if you're not sure about shades, as I said, number 2 at the moment in winter suits an awful lot of Caucasian skin types. The number 1 is actually fairly pale. If you've got a very, very pale skin, the number 1, more people seem to suit the number 2. The place to test foundation is actually on your jawline. A lot of ladies put it on their hands. Hands are a good start, but your hands aren't necessarily the same as your face. And what you don't want is a floating face. You don't want your face to look different from everywhere else. So test it on your jawline and just blend it in and let it settle for a little while. Sometimes the foundations go on and they look a little bit darker, and then when they settle and your skin warms them up, they just change slightly. So you can't go too wrong if you're slightly out in our foundations. So if I'm going to use, if I want a lot of coverage, I would use the Continuous Cover foundation. It's brilliant. Even though it's got good coverage, it's got coconut oil in it and vitamin E, so it's still really hydrating, and you don't need very much product. When Light Look Beauty Balm came out in the tubes, I was delighted. This is a cross between, it's not as light in texture as a tinted moisturizer, but it's not as quite as covering as a continuous cover. So I play quite a lot of tennis, or I used to play tennis when we weren't in lockdown. And I still like to wear it. I'm probably the only person on the tennis court that likes to wear her makeup, but I do. And I love wearing Light Look Beauty Balm for sport. In the summer, I wear it on its own usually. But in the winter, I actually quite like to mix the two together. Which I know Tricia, I think, sometimes does as well, which I will show you how to do that. Light Look Beauty Balm is nice if you want a slightly more slightly lighter texture and slightly more luminous. It's got a lovely dewy glow to it. And the one that I use in the winter is the lightest one, which is 0.5. In the summer, I find 0.5 is too light for me, and I go into the number 1. The number 1 has got a really, really nice colour to it. So in the winter, if you're fairly pale, the 0.5 should be fine. What you can do, and that's what I love to mix. I think a lot of makeup artists love mixing colours anyway, but I actually like the effect of mixing the two together. So now, because I'm quite pale, I'm going to use predominantly, because I don't want too heavy a coverage today. I'm going to use a sort of maybe more than 2/3 of Light Look Beauty Balm 0.5. But because I'm going to mix it with a little bit of continuous cover, I'm actually going to go, because I'm quite pale and wan, I'm actually going to use just a tiny squirt of the 2.5, not the 2. If I was going the other way around, say I wanted to wear mainly the continuous cover because I wanted more coverage, I would wear the 2, but with one tiny little squirt of the 1. I hope that makes sense. So I'm sort of still giving myself a little bit of colour.
Can I come in here, Sally? Because I do the something to say about that. So I would you can, I don't know whether you want to carry on just applying, starting to apply a little bit while I say this. What I do, and I agree with Sally. Now I need more coverage than Sally does because my skin, as I said, it's older, but it's also more blemished. So I start with the continuous cover foundation, and I use a 2 all year round. But I vary that in terms of texture and also in terms of colour by using a little bit of the Light Look Beauty Balm. So I will also use the number 1 Light Look Beauty Balm. Yeah. So you start with the Light Look Beauty Balm and add a little bit of base, of our base. I do it the other way around. So I start with a continuous cover and add in a little bit of the Light Look Beauty Balm. Now, you can say to me, oh, well, you're trying to sell us 2 products. Well, yes and no. The thing is that if you use the 2 products, you use less. So it's not going to cost you any more in the long run once you've bought the 2, because they'll just last that much longer. If I was only using the O2 base, I would use probably 2 squirts, whereas now I use 1 big squirt, and then I would put a little bit of base on. And just picking up again on what Sally was saying about, you're not called a makeup artist for nothing. The lovely thing about makeup is that you by mixing it, you get your perfect colour.
All year round, yeah.
Exactly. And so I'm going to pass back to Sally now, but just for those of you who are a bit nearer my age than Sally's age. How old are you, Sally?
I'm nearly 57.
Okay, so I mean, she's an absolute spring chicken, isn't she? so somebody who's in their late 50s, early 60s, the beauty balm is probably enough coverage. But if you're in your 70s or 80s, you might need something a little bit more covering. And as I said, but you can just add a little bit of different colour and slightly change the texture if you add in a little bit of the Light Look Beauty Balm. So back over to you, Sam.
And you can change, as Tricia said, you can change the proportions of each depending on how much cover you want. That's what's so nice if you do want to mix. If I was not going to mix, I would probably apply directly onto my face with my fingers, just to pop it on, and then I would use a foundation brush to blend in. There's different ways to apply. Because I'm actually, you see what I've got there on my skin. I've got the Light Look Beauty Balm 0.5. I've got a little squirt of the 2.5, and I've added a tiny little squirt of primer as well. You can forget the primer first off and just add it to your foundation if you just want quick. But I always feel that you get a better effect if you put the primer on all over first. I then still put a little bit on if I'm using the continuous cover foundation, because I find it just sort of, it just makes it go on much better for me. So what I then do, because I'm mixing on my hand is my palette, I actually use the foundation brush to mix so that I'm getting a little bit of, you can see what I'm doing there, do it quite high up. So what I then do is put it onto the T-zone first. I kind of put it on, forehead, down my nose. So as I said, if I was just using one colour, I would just pop it on with my fingers. But because I'm mixing, I'm using the brush. Now, what I'm going to do is just blend it outwards. So you want more colour on the centre. You don't want to start here because you don't want, as I said, that floating face look. And when you first put it on, you might think it looks just a little bit dark, but I personally prefer just a tiny bit of warmth in my face, particularly in winter, than a ghostly look. I love the foundation brush. You can really, really swirl. And what I sometimes do, I know Tricia, I think, has one for sort of putting on. I think you then use a second clean one to really, really buff it. You can buff it in really well. I do put a little bit around the eyes before putting concealer on. And what I sometimes do, I put a little bit on my top here, but I make sure you don't want too much foundation on your top lip. So I do sometimes just sort of take that off a little bit. So some ladies like to use blenders. The other option is a beauty blender or a sponge. I used to use those, but I'm now absolutely hooked on this particular foundation brush. I love the way it goes on. I love the fact that it's just a really professional finish. You'll find it lasts a lot better if you use a tool. So I haven't put very much on. You don't need loads of this makeup. That's what's so good as well. You shouldn't need to put lots on. Make sure that you do blend around the jaw and the neck. As I said, you don't want, and what I sometimes do when I've finished is just use the warmth of my fingers just to melt the product even more. Now, ladies often say, should they do their eye makeup first or after their foundation? I am of the old-fashioned ilk that I like. Today I've put my eye makeup on first, just because I was too scared to come on with absolutely nothing on. I'm sure I will do at some point. But I do usually put my foundation on first before doing my eyes, unless I'm doing really strong, smoky eyes. If I want a really, really strong, heavy makeup, and I know I'm going to use really lots of charcoal, and it might fall, if ever you ladies find that you get spillage of eyeshadows, you shouldn't too much with the Look Fabulous ones because they're matte and they're not sort of too loose, but certainly some shimmery eyeshadows, you get bits everywhere. A lot of makeup artists like to do the eyes first so that when they do the foundation and the concealer, they can sort of clean up everything. I'm still, because I've done for 30 years, I've done it one way. I still actually usually prefer to do it, as I said, doing the foundation first. So that should just kind of create a fairly, and what I love about the Light Look Beauty Balm is you are still luminous. There's still that luminosity of colour. I know Tricia says I don't need much concealer. I definitely do. So when you're talking about concealer, maybe I'll put mine on at the same time, shall I, Tricia? Just so you see the difference.
Absolutely. So are you going to hand back to me to talk about blemishes?
Yeah, do you want to talk about blemishes now while I do put a little bit of concealer on? Or would it be helpful? I don't know if it would be helpful for me to show some of the colours on my hand. Would that be helpful, that the different colours of the Light Look Beauty Balm and the foundation? I've got them all.
I think that might be
a bit tricky.
Yeah, it's just quite difficult to do that via the screen.
One thing is we've got the 30-day money back guarantee, which is brilliant. So there's not many companies where if you get the foundation wrong, you can send it back free. So I think that's an amazing feature of Look Fabulous Forever. But as I said, in the winter, if you're not sure and you're fairly sort of pale, would you agree, Tricia? Number 2 suits a lot of women in terms of the continuous cover. And in the Light Look Beauty Balm, probably the 0.5 if you're quite pale. If you're a little bit more colour, the number 1 is the one I would say. Certainly in the summer for me, I can wear the number 1 in the Light Look Beauty Balm.
We do have videos. We've got videos where I demonstrate the colours fairly clearly and show you. And I'll get Bryony, perhaps you can put that underneath this video, so you could just click on that, and there is I show it I show all the colours very, very clearly. It takes quite a while to describe them, but just reiterating what Sally's just said, the number one beauty balm is the one that suits most people, and the number 2 continuous cover is the one that suits, I would say, 80% of women, to be honest with you, if you've got Caucasian skin. All right, so I can see myself now, and I'm going to use my screen. I've got no mirror next to me, but hopefully by feel and you know, I do this all the time, so I can do it. So what I wanted to talk to you about is that what Sally has done there is she has unified her skin tone, and she has already started this process of helping your skin to look flawless. When I've done that, I feel that, that the next bit of what I do is as important, if not more important. Why? Because I have a history of terrible problems with rosacea and also with blemishes, which I have actually, I think, cured mostly now with a combination of diet and Look Fabulous Forever skincare. So my skin is better than it's ever been, you know, for years. So I can't tell you how thrilled I am with that. But my biggest problem now, and if you look at me, if I look straight at the camera, hopefully I'm looking straight at you, you can see that my eyes, and certainly this area of my eyes, has become extremely dark. And that's because, and it's a sad part of aging, is that you know, your bones start to shrink and your eyes start to become more deep set than they were before. I didn't have this problem when I was in my 40s and probably in my early 50s, but I have it a lot more now. And I also have a tendency for quite a dark line underneath here. So, and if you've got eye bags, then this is the way to help the way that they look. So you need a stiff brush. So our little brush number 4 is stiff, and you need a good concealer. So I use concealer 02 because my base is mostly 02. So they match. And I'm going to work my little brush and get quite a lot of this concealer on. So I haven't done this yet this morning. So I sort of start here and I start to push this colour into the corners of my eyes like that. Okay, so you can see that quite clearly. You can see where it is and what I've done with it. Now, I've obviously would do this with no eye makeup on, but you can see immediately how that, and obviously I'll show you how to make sure it doesn't look like this when I've finished, but that's the kind of thing that I'm doing. And I'm actually going to pull this right down here. I'll do the other eye as well. So you can see that I bring it up over that bone there, and I push it right down into the corner like that and pull it along there. So that's where I start. I'm now going to do this bit around my nose. And again, it just helps to make that bit look better. And I've this morning, I've got a spot here, just a tiny one. And I have on my cheek still some blemished, a slight discoloration there. You'll know where you've got your bits of discoloration. I've got an age spot here. And I've got another one by that mole down there. The other area that I have a problem with is my chin. And again, my chin is a different colour from the rest of my face. It's purpley blue. Don't know why, no idea. But I can bring the colour of my chin back up to flesh colour with concealer. Now, the thing about our concealer is it's creamy in texture, which makes it very easy to apply. But what it does, after you've used your brush, what I find invaluable is now to push it into my skin using the warmth of my fingers. And because it's actually creamy, it does that very readily. So now I'm just making sure that it's combined with my skin, as I said, by using the warmth of my fingers. So just pushing it in like that. So I obviously know all the areas that I've pushed it. This takes me seconds, by the way, when I'm doing this for myself. So I just pat, 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 like that. That one, and my chin. And then, I haven't quite finished this. By the way, because I would normally put my eye makeup on afterwards, I wouldn't get this, you know, now I've pushed it into where my eye makeup is and so on. The other thing is that when I'm putting my eye makeup on and I put my eye primer on, now my eye primer is flesh colored, I will also push that eye primer so it meets my concealer. So the whole area has, you know, I've taken away that sunken kind of blue look. Now, the next thing that I do, really vital part of it, is I set all that with translucent powder. So I use this brush, which is our brush number 7, and I now dot on translucent powder onto that, all the areas which I've concealed, and that sets it beautifully. Literally means it doesn't move for the day, and it mattifies it. So where you would have had slightly shiny concealer before, you don't have shiny concealer at all. It totally mattifies it. So again, going back to all those areas that I've used it on, these are the areas that I would use every day. My little age spot there, and then onto my chin, like that. Okay, and if I was using a mirror, which I'm not, I'm using the screen of my computer, which is never very good, but hopefully you can see the difference now that I've completely, as I said, added to that effect, that sort of flawless effect. Now, I haven't forgotten that I mentioned this spot that I've got here. Now, if you've got literally just quite a small spot, you could use a finer brush. This is our brush number 5. And again, the sealer, obviously. And literally just dot the spot like that. You just literally dot it like that. And then just dab the translucent powder on top. And voila, it's disappeared. So I hope that was useful to you. And you know, what I feel you should do is, depending on how blemished your skin is to think about when you've done your base, look in the mirror and say, okay, where do I need extra help here? So if Sally says that she thinks her face primer is knickers for the face, I think concealer is the bra for the face.
I call it Tipp-Ex for the face.
Why not use keep using that metaphor for underwear? And just finally, Sally mentioned about the about neutralizers. Obviously, this is the green neutralizer, and this is the peach colored neutralizer. And what neutralizers, we didn't have these for quite a long time. We got requested for them. If you do have rosacea, think about it, rosacea is red. That's why it's called rosacea. And color balance neutralizers are all about the color wheel. So you go to the opposite part of the color wheel. So if you have red patches on your face, they're neutralized by the color green. If you have blue patches on your face, so very heavy under eye areas or any other bits that have a bluey tinge to them, then the way to neutralize that is with peach. That's the opposite side of the color wheel. So you're taking a color and you're using the opposite color to neutralize it. So that's why they're green and peach. And as Sally said, put them on underneath your foundation. You just pat them onto the skin, then apply your foundation, and you will find remarkably that those patchy colored areas are much less prominent. So do hope that was helpful to you. I'm just going to pass it back to Sally, and we're just going to finish with you know, final touches. So
okay. Can I just a couple of things in terms of the concealer. Another little top tip is to use a little bit of your concealer on your Cupid's bow, because light colors bring forward, so you can actually put a little bit just sort of on the top. You can see that just brings that slightly forward, and that's a nice little tip with the concealer. I would use brush number 5 for doing that, the small amount. The other thing is, if you get cakiness underneath the eyes and you suffer from that, a good tip I learned a few years ago is actually to use a tiny, tiny amount of organic, this is cold pressed jojoba oil. So if you take a tiny amount on your ring finger, I'm just going to put literally 1 drop and then just pat it off. If you find you get dryness and cakiness, it's just like a miracle. You can just put a little bit with your ring finger into the area. You can do this if it's later in the day that it happened, you can do that, or you're going out in the evening and you don't really want to put any more makeup on, it will just refresh. The jojoba oil is like a waxy ester that is very, very similar to the content of sebum, your oil in your skin. So it actually melts the concealer in really, really well. It's just a fantastic product. You can use it, if you get it, you can use it on nails, you can use it on your hair, your scalp as well. I just got this one online, Clegamic jojoba oil, but it does need, you want it unrefined, you don't want anything that's been refined. This is totally chemical free, but it works very, very well on that area, just a tiny bit. So powder, definitely, Tricia, I love the powder. I remember about 5 years ago, I went into Debenhams to have my makeup done just to see what the makeup artists were doing at the time. And I had a fantastic makeup done. And at the end, the lady put powder around my eyes because I've got a lot of lines around my eyes. And it was not a fine powder. And suddenly I literally went from age whatever I was then, I aged 10 years because the powder sat in my lines. It looked fine until then. It doesn't happen with this powder because Tricia obviously has formulated the finest translucent powder. It makes a massive, massive difference if it's fine. And it does keep your makeup on all day. It really, really does. So I would definitely recommend that. One other little tip is just remembered with the concealer is just we talked about brows 2 weeks ago. If you want a really sharp line underneath your brows, after you've done your brows, I've done all my eye makeup apart from brows. I haven't actually done my brows. But if you put just a tiny little line of your concealer just under, if you can see that very well, under it, after you've done your brows, you get, throwing my brushes around, you get a really, really sharpness, and it just makes, light brings forward, so it's sort of bringing forward that bit. I also love the Instant Bright highlighter. That's a fantastic product which will just highlight areas. So I think in terms of the base, definitely powder will keep your makeup on all day. If you're going to get hot, if you're going to wear your makeup all day, you're going to go out, the powder will just set it and keep it on. And it's important to get one that's really, really fine. I now feel that I know I haven't got any colour on, so I still don't look right. So I am just going to very, very quickly, we talked about bronzer and we talked about blusher last week, but just to show you how easy it is to make you look a bit better, this and a little bit of lipstick, and hopefully you'll see that I look much better. I'm going to put a tiny bit of my peach cream.
Sally, while you're doing that, we'll watch you doing that. I just want I want to tell the story about how we chose our continuous cover foundation, because it's quite important for you to understand this. I actually started Look Fabulous Forever. One of the reasons was that I bought a Chanel Lumiere base, and it cost me over £40. I brought it home, I was quite excited, I'd seen the ads, and this was before I started the business, obviously, and I put it on, and within about 3 or 4 hours, it had just disappeared off my face and left it looking like I hadn't got any foundation on. And I was so upset. I knew I couldn't take it back, so I'd wasted my money. And I kept thinking, why would it do that? And then I had this sort of light bulb. I mean, okay, it's because it's made for younger skin. It's actually made for a skin that is not absorbent like mine is, because my skin is, old and absorbent. So when I found my cosmetic manufacturer that we still use, he's in the UK, he's an incredible guy. I was talking to him, and in the room was their formulator, the woman who does all the formulations for them. and she has alopecia. So you can imagine she has absolutely no hair and no eyebrows, and lovely, she's a lovely looking woman. She had this amazing scarf on. And I looked at her face and her skin, and I said to her, your skin looks amazing. And you really notice it with somebody with alopecia, because, you know, she hasn't got that softening of the hair and everything. And she said, this is our best ever, I believe. It's called Studio Finished. So I said, okay, send me it, because, you know, she said, we call it Studio Finish. I said, send me that, because I think that looks fantastic on you. She was a woman in her 50s. Anyway, she sent it to me and I put it on. And from the moment that I put it on, I just thought, wow, this is something special. So that became our continuous cover foundation. And you know, I just want you to say that that was what I wanted to find. For me, the holy grail for Look Fabulous Forever was to find a base that looked good and actually lasted, and you know, really flattering, not heavy, not matte, not cake, not old-fashioned, not like your granny looked, you know, like she'd fallen in the flower bin. And so that's what we have, and what we still have. And now we have this edition of Light Look Beauty Balm if you want something slightly different. So go back to Sally, who's looking particularly gorgeous.
I definitely look better with a little bit of colour on my face, particularly in the winter, but it just shows how quick you can do that. The base is the canvas on which you paint the picture. So it's important. People say, what should I spend money on? Should I spend money? Should I go for? I think that if you get the right foundation, the right canvas, then it makes all the difference, and everything else will look so much better. So I would say certainly put your money into your skincare, into your primers, into your foundations. Everything then will work a million times better. And if you find that you fall in love with the foundation, it becomes like your best friend, really. You know, you don't want to change. So I really do think that Tricia's both foundations are the best. They are absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't tried them, then give it a go, because using your fingers, using your brush, they're very forgiving. I think all the makeup is very forgiving makeup, and that's what's so nice about it.
Thank you, Sally. So we'll go for questions now. If any of you asked any questions in the chat function, we are here to answer your questions. So Bryony, let me go to you.
So first of all, a question from Rosie, this was earlier when we were talking about prepping the skin for when you put on the base. Does LFF have a skin toner?
You mean, so by skin toner, you talking about?
I think, like, do we have a product that's a skin toner?
No, we don't. No, I've never used a skin toner, and I think they're quite astringent for older skins. I suppose I don't have greasy skins. I think you need a skin toner if you've got greasy skin, and it does neutralize. But I think it can be quite drying on an older skin. So I doubt that you need them. I know when we were teenagers and growing up, it was always, you know, cleanse and tone, cleanse and tone. But that was then. You know, things have moved on, and I personally would not use a toner. I feel it's too astringent.
I think cleansers have moved on so much as well, from the cleanse, tone, moisturize. Now our cleansers are so brilliant and hydrating, and I would tend to agree with Tricia. You certainly don't need one.
Okay, and so we've got another question about product as well. Does our foundation or the beauty balm have SPF in?
No, it doesn't. I tell you why we don't put SPF in it. It's because we sell, as you probably know, we sell across the world, and you run into problems with SPF, particularly for the American market. They will not let you send product from into their market unless with SPF in it. It's seen as a drug, so it comes under the FDA, which is the Drug Administration people, and so therefore you can't sell it in the States unless it's been produced in an American factory and it has got the FDA approval for the SPF that you've used in it. So it's a huge limiting factor for us, and we cannot afford. We're too small. I wouldn't, you know, I can't tell you the complications of having to do that. So what we're doing, and because we know how important SPF is to all of you, we do have some level of SPF in our moisturizer. We hoped we'd get at least 20. They reckoned it was around 15, but then it tested out as slightly under 15, so we had to call it 10. end of. It's just such an awful complicated process. If you put a lot of SPF into a product, you can get, because they use something called titanium oxide, it makes the product extremely white. And the very first moisturizers I used, I honestly looked as though I had died. I mean, it was awful. It was awful stuff. So I just kept saying, we can't sell this. We can't sell this. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. So they reduced the amount of SPF, but therefore we reduce the protection. Anyway, long story short, we have now I have been testing and got very excited with SPF drops. So what I've been doing with them, they're factor 50, is using them and mixing them in with my base. I could mix them in with my moisturizer. I've actually just been trying it mixed in with my base, and it's been brilliantly successful. So we're looking to produce those. Now, nothing is quick when you produce makeup. Nothing is quick, unless we can produce lipstick quite quickly because it's just a color change. But when we're producing a completely new product, it takes months. So we're looking towards the summer. Sally mentioned for exfoliator. That will be a summertime launch probably, and the same with SPF. We hope the SPF drops get in before full summer, otherwise we'll launch them in the autumn. Not a good time to launch, but very popular in Australia probably. Anyway, so there you go, some of the complications and joys and delights of running a makeup company. But I'm excited about the SPF drops, and I think they're a solution for a lot of things, because if you want to make sure that you have got that extra protection, you can add them in to other products, and it's very flexible like that. And they are lovely. It's a lovely product. So back to you, Bryony.
Jude wants to know, do you need to wash your foundation brush after every time you use it? Or if not, how often should you be washing your brushes?
Well, shall I answer this, Tricia? As a makeup artist, obviously, I would obviously clean my brushes between people. Being a little bit lazy myself, my own brushes, I do not clean my brush every single time. Maybe I should, but I don't. I don't know whether you do, Tricia, but I certainly do clean my brushes more often than some ladies. I have ladies coming to me for makeup lessons where they say, I never, ever, ever clean my brushes. So then you get this sort of caked in, awful, it just doesn't do the brushes good. So I would do it certainly once a week. Maybe, I don't know how often you do yours, Tricia. Do you do yours sort of every?
Yeah, I tend to do them when I feel they're not working as well, because they've actually got too much product. Can I just say about that? The important thing to say is, if it's you and only you using that brush, absolutely, danger of bacteria is zero, because it's your own bacteria. They are everything. You know how your kitchen sponge is more full of bacteria than your toilet seat. I mean, bacteria is everywhere. Everybody gets very hysterical about it. It's everywhere. It's a natural part of what, we've got bacteria all over our skin and in our stomachs and God knows where. I sound like I'm an expert. I'm not, but my point is that you won't infect yourself with your own bacteria, and that's what people worry about on brushes. The thing about brushes is that they get clogged with products, as Sally says, and every now and again I'll think to myself, my blusher brush is not working very well anymore, because it's got a bit, your skin is a little bit greasy, and it's picked it up on the brush, and then so I'll wash them when I feel I need it, about once a week. And I have a good old brush. We've got a great brush cleaner which is vegan and smells delicious.
I mentioned the brush cleaner, Tricia, because again, a top tip when you're using the brush cleaner, so it's a lovely vegan soap. It smells gorgeous. You just put water in it. What you don't want to do with your brushes is to squidge them down and splay all the hairs out, because you'll find then they don't last. So when you're using it, keep them so that they're sort of flat in it, particularly if you're using your blender brush. You don't want to go and like that, because it will then splay the hairs and they won't last as long. So doing it so that you keep the shape of the brush is really, really important, to keep your brushes in good shape for many, many years then.
Yeah. I concur with all of that. And we've got just a note here. We've got an offer this week. You get a free brush, any of our brushes, if you just buy one eyeshadow. So it's a fantastic offer. And the code is freebie. It's FREEBIE, and you get a free brush as long as you buy one eyeshadow. So And our brushes, you know, if you look, I think the most expensive one's about £18, the big one like that, which you need for your powder and stuff. So that's a great offer. Bryony, back to you.
Just to say, there's a couple of questions asking about how you use the brush cleaner. Obviously, Sally, you just did that demo, but we'll pop a link underneath the video as well to show people. There's a video that we have of how you use it. Pauline says that she's got skin under her nose that is paler than the rest of her face. What should she do?
Again, you could mix colors so that you've got, you know, if you do have one foundation or one beauty balm that's slightly darker, you could use that just on that area, just to bring the two together. Or even, I don't think you want to put a lot of thick concealer on that area, although our concealer isn't thick, but you could maybe use a tiny bit of a slightly darker concealer than one you're using elsewhere. So it's just kind of creating a balance with the color. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think this is where if you've got a couple of things, one, you know, with the Light Look Beauty Balm, if you add a little bit more in, it goes a little bit darker. So therefore, it's a bit like a tint in some ways. So you could compensate for that by putting a little bit darker colour underneath your nose. I agree with what Sally said before. She said, you know, avoid that upper lip area. What I tend to do is I'll use a Q-tip and I'll just rub that off, because there's nothing worse than having that line around on your top lip that actually looks a bit like a sort of self-coloured moustache. So I do tend to clean it off my upper lip, the makeup that I put on, but if it's lighter, then again, but just make sure it's really well combined. That's the thing. Really well combined. Okay, anything else, Bryony?
Just a final question from Esme. Esme has said, could concealer be a bit too heavy for the delicate skin under the eye?
I would say no. I think it's how you apply, and I think it's because our, you know, it's the formulation of our concealer really helps with that. And I think, you know, apply it in the way that you saw me applying it. You know, I do put it on that delicate skin, but that 3-stage process for me: apply it with a brush, push it in with the fingers, and then a little bit of translucent powder on top. I never get that sort of cakey look around my eyes, so it works very well. But you do need to, if that delicate eye area, skin eye area, is really well moisturized, then again you won't run into that problem. If it's dry, it'll grab onto the product and it will look cakey. So and Sally's tip with the jojoba oil, fantastic tip there. I haven't heard of that, I haven't used that, but I think, you know, you swear by it, Sally, so I think that's a brilliant tip.
Can I just quickly
are we there, Bryony?
What shade of lipsticks are you both wearing?
I'm wearing True Coral, my True Coral favourite. I love that one, just lifts me up.
And I'm wearing fuchsia because I've got a bright pink top on, and yeah, I decided this morning that I needed something pink. I just thought, oh my goodness, I need a pink lift today, so I put on a bright pink jumper and my bright pink fuchsia lipstick, which I absolutely love. And that's it. So thank you very much indeed, everybody, for staying and being part of this wonderful audience that we have every week. I love it. I love that so many of you are keen to come and hear what we have to say. Next week we're going to start. Probably it might be 1 or 2 or even 3 weeks about eye makeup, which is the biggie for a lot of women. And I think we agreed, Sally, we'd start next week with a masterclass on shaping. So looking at your eyes and really understanding what you need to do to get the very best out of your eye makeup. So yes, you will see Sally with no eye makeup on.
You will. I might have my foundation on though. Might not go totally naked.
Okay, that's allowed. All right, so look forward to seeing you then, and do come and join our chat tomorrow with Angelique Dutoit, because as I said, she's an absolutely delightful super trooper. I'm sure you'd be really interested to meet her and hear what she has to say, and I shall look forward to seeing all of you that join us then as well. So bye bye everybody, and thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.